Did you know that the month you choose to retire can cost you almost $11,000 if you choose the wrong month? Yes, $11,000. And no one is talking about it. If you're planning to retire in 2026, don't choose your retirement month until you hear this. Because the month you retire could affect your Social Security, Medicare costs, retirement taxes, pension, healthcare, and even how quickly you start withdrawing from your retirement savings. And yet almost nobody talks about it. Ask someone, when are you retiring? And you'll probably hear, at 65, at 67, maybe next year. But ask them, what month are you retiring? And suddenly, silence. That's strange when you think about it. We spend decades preparing for retirement, yet something as simple as choosing February instead of November or January instead of December could change what your first year of retirement looks like financially. Now, before somebody jumps into the comments and says, January is the best month, or no, December is better, hold on, because I'm going to show you why both answers can be right, and both can be terribly wrong. There is no magical retirement month that works for everybody, but there is a way to identify the right month for you. And stay with me, because one of the biggest retirement date mistakes I'm going to show you can potentially come down to something as small as one day. First though, tell me something. If money wasn't an issue, what month would you retire? January, June, December? Put your month in the comments. Now let's look at what actually happens to your money when you retire. 1. Your retirement year is not a normal year. Here's something many people don't realize. Your final working year can be financially messy. Why? Because two lives collide. Your working life is ending, while your retirement life is beginning. Imagine a man named Robert. Robert is 66. He's been working for decades and has finally decided, this is my year, I'm done. But Robert decides to retire in November. By November, he has already received almost an entire year's salary. Maybe he received a bonus. Maybe his employer pays out unused vacation time. Then his pension begins. Maybe Social Security starts. And perhaps he withdraws some money from his 401k or IRA to get retirement started. Suddenly, Robert has salary, bonus, PTO payout, pension income, Social Security, retirement account withdrawals, potentially landing around the same tax year. The source calls this the income stack, income sources that normally occur separately overlapping during the transition year. And that's where your retirement month becomes interesting. Suppose instead Robert retired much earlier in the year. His wage income could be dramatically lower simply because he didn't work most of that year. That could potentially create more room for tax planning. So does that mean everybody should retire in January? No. And this is where I think some retirement advice becomes too simplistic. Because if Robert works until November, what else did he receive? 9 or 10 additional months of salary, potential employer retirement contributions, health insurance, possibly another pension milestone, maybe a year-end bonus, and he avoided funding all those months from his savings. So here's your first question. Would you rather potentially create a lower income year or collect another 9 months of salary? There's no universal answer, but you need to know the trade-off before choosing your date. 2. Don't automatically start Social Security when you retire. This one catches people. Some retirees mentally connect these two decisions. I stopped working, therefore I start Social Security. But they don't necessarily have to happen together. The source explains that the taxation of Social Security can depend on what it calls provisional income, involving other income plus part of your Social Security benefit. So imagine retiring late in the year after earning substantial wages, then immediately adding Social Security. Your retirement date and Social Security claiming date may deserve to be considered as two separate decisions. And there's another issue. Claiming Social Security earlier can mean receiving a smaller monthly retirement benefit than waiting. So don't simply ask, when should I retire? Ask, When should I retire? And separately, when should I claim Social Security? Those answers may be the same. They may not. And if you're already retired, I'm curious. Did you start Social Security immediately when you stopped working? Yes or no? Tell me below. Because I'd love to see how many retirees actually separated those two decisions. 3. The Medicare surprise. Now we get to something that can frustrate retirees enormously. Medicare. Many people think, I retired, my income went down, so Medicare will obviously see that. Unfortunately, Medicare's income-related premium system doesn't always work from what you're earning right now. The source discusses IRMAA, the income-related monthly adjustment amount, and the use of income information from 2 years earlier in determining these surcharges. Think about how strange that can feel. You're retired. Your paycheck is gone. You're living on substantially less, and your Medicare premium can be affected by income from when you were still working. That's why your final high-income working year deserves attention. But there's an important piece I don't want you to miss. Retirement itself can matter when dealing with an IRMAA determination. So if your income has fallen substantially because you've stopped working, don't simply assume a higher Medicare premium can never be reconsidered. This is something to investigate based on your circumstances. And that brings us to a bigger lesson. Don't choose a retirement month by looking at Social Security alone. Social Security, taxes, Medicare, and your other income can interact. You need to see the whole board. 4. The retirement mistake that could come down to one day. This is the one I promised you earlier. Imagine 2 co-workers, same company, similar career, similar pension. One retires December 31st. The other works slightly longer into the new year. Could those dates produce different pension results? Depending on the rules of their particular pension plan, possibly. Some plans have very specific rules about service credits, benefit calculations, eligibility dates, and milestones. The source uses the example of a plan where working into a new year could potentially affect service credit. The point is not that January 2nd is magically better than December 31st. Please don't leave this video thinking that. The point is, check your plan. Before you tell your employer, December 31st is my last day, ask your pension administrator or HR. What happens to my pension if I retire this month versus next month? And then ask, is there another service credit date or milestone coming up? Imagine working 25 or 30 years and losing an available advantage because you didn't ask one question before choosing your last day. 5. Don't forget what happens to your health insurance. Here's another question people don't ask early enough. What happens to your health insurance the moment you leave your job? Does your employer coverage end immediately? At the end of the month? Do you move on to Medicare? Do you need COBRA? Do you need another form of coverage? The original transcript highlights the transition from employer insurance to Medicare, COBRA, or private coverage as another reason retirement timing deserves planning. This isn't the glamorous part of retirement. Nobody dreams for 30 years about coordinating insurance dates. But one poorly planned gap can turn retirement excitement into unnecessary stress. So before choosing the month, write down last day of employer coverage. Then first day of new coverage. Those dates need to make sense together. 6. Now I'm going to argue against retiring early in the year. Up to this point, you may be thinking, Daniel, this sounds easy. Just retire in January or February. Not so fast. Because now I'm going to make the opposite argument. Suppose you retire in January. Your paycheck stops. But your mortgage doesn't. Your groceries don't. Your electricity doesn't. Your travel plans don't. Your life continues. Where does that money come from? Potentially your retirement portfolio and other income sources. The source raises an important concept called sequence of returns risk. Withdrawing from investments during poor market conditions early in retirement can be particularly damaging to portfolio longevity. If you retire near the beginning of the year, You potentially have many more months of living expenses to fund without employment income. If you retire later, you may have accumulated additional salary and need fewer months of retirement withdrawals that calendar year. Suddenly, December doesn't sound so terrible, does it? That's exactly my point. There isn't one best retirement month. There are trade-offs. Anyone who tells you everybody should retire in January without seeing your numbers doesn't know enough about your situation to make that statement. 7. There may be a tax planning window after you retire. Now here's where an earlier retirement date can become interesting again. When wages disappear, some retirees experience a period where taxable income is lower than it was during their working years. The source discusses using such lower income periods for potential Roth conversions, moving money from a traditional IRA into a Roth while intentionally managing the resulting taxable income. I don't want to turn this into a Roth conversion class. The important concept is simpler. Retirement can create a tax planning window, and your retirement month determines how much of that first calendar year is actually available. That's another reason you shouldn't choose your last working day simply because it sounds nice. Run the numbers first. 8. There's one thing your spreadsheet can't measure. Now forget taxes for a moment. Forget Medicare. Forget Social Security. Let's talk about you. Maybe you've worked for 40 years and you're tired. You're retiring in December. It's February. You have 10 months left. And every Monday morning feels heavier than the last. How much is 10 months of your life worth? That's not a rhetorical question. For some people, continuing to work is absolutely worth it. For others, those extra months may be months they would rather spend with a spouse, traveling, helping with grandchildren, taking care of themselves, or simply waking up without an alarm clock. The source makes a similar point about burnout and the emotional transition into retirement, contrasting a stressful year-end departure with the psychological feeling of a fresh beginning earlier in the year. And this is why I keep saying, the mathematically perfect retirement month may not be your perfect retirement month. Your retirement isn't just a tax return. It's your life. So, what is the best month to retire? After everything we've discussed, here's my answer. It depends. I know. That's not the dramatic answer people want. But it's the useful answer. An early year retirement may deserve consideration if reducing wage income in your transition year creates useful tax planning opportunities. A mid-year retirement might give you a compromise, additional months of salary and employer benefits while still beginning retirement relatively soon. And a late-year retirement might make sense if staying longer gives you valuable salary, healthcare, bonuses, pension benefits, or allows you to preserve your investments longer. The source ultimately reaches a similar conclusion. The appropriate month depends on income sources, healthcare circumstances, pension rules, Social Security strategy, and personal readiness. So here's the sentence I want you to remember. The best month to retire isn't sitting on the calendar. It's hidden inside your numbers. Before choosing your retirement date, look at these things together. Your salary and bonuses, your tax situation, Social Security, Medicare, your pension, your health insurance, your retirement accounts, and finally, your life. Because you've worked 30 or 40 years to reach this moment. Don't spend decades preparing for retirement and then choose the actual date in 5 minutes. And now I want to hear from the retirees watching. What month did you retire? And here's the more important question. Knowing what you know today, would you choose that same month again? Put the month in yes or no in the comments. Your experience could genuinely help somebody who's trying to make this decision right now. And if you're still preparing for retirement, tell me the month you're considering. I'd love to see which month wins. If this video helps you think differently about retirement, subscribe because we're going to keep breaking down the Social Security, retirement, and senior finance decisions that can affect your money and your life. Thanks for watching. And remember, don't just plan when you'll stop working. Plan how you want retirement to begin.